My name is Maya Wallace. I am 30 years old and I was supposed to become a mother for the first time in less than 24 hours. My hospital bag was sitting by the front door. The tiny blue blanket was folded on top. The car seat had finally been installed after I begged for 3 days. I thought the next time I left that house, I would be holding my husband's hand, breathing through contractions, and trying to stay brave for our baby. Instead, I stood in the driveway with my water breaking, one hand gripping my stomach, while my husband checked the time on his phone like I was making him late for a dinner reservation. His parents were waiting at the airport. Their golf resort trip had been planned for weeks, and apparently, that mattered more than his wife going into labor. I told him I needed the hospital. He looked at the passenger seat, then at the luggage in the back, and said, I would be fine. He told me to call a taxi or an Uber because the tickets were non-refundable. Then he drove away. I did not scream after him. I did not chase the car. I just stood there, shaking, realizing that the man who promised to protect our family had abandoned us before our son even took his first breath. But what he did not know was that someone saw everything. And by the next morning, when his phone started exploding and his perfect little vacation turned into panic, he called me begging to understand what was happening. Before I tell you what I said to him, tell me where you are listening from today, and whether you have ever watched someone reveal who they really are at the worst possible moment. Ethan Vance did not become selfish overnight. That was the part that made everything harder to accept. In public, he knew exactly how to look like a devoted husband. At office parties, he kept one hand on my back and told people he could not wait to become a father. On social media, he posted pictures of the nursery and wrote captions about family, blessings, and new beginnings. But inside our home in Greenville, South Carolina, the truth was completely different. I was 39 weeks pregnant, exhausted, swollen, and still doing almost everything alone. I folded baby clothes, ordered diapers, prepared freezer meals, checked hospital forms, paid small bills, washed tiny bottles, compared pediatrician reviews, and reminded Ethan again and again that the car seat had to be installed before our son arrived. Ethan worked as a regional sales manager for Northline Outdoor Solutions, a company that sold outdoor family lifestyle products. He spent his days selling the idea of family togetherness, then came home too tired to help his own wife bend down to pick up laundry. Most evenings, he dropped his laptop bag by the couch and asked what was for dinner before asking how I felt. If I told him my back hurt, he said everyone was tired. If I told him the baby had been kicking hard all afternoon, he said that sounded like a good sign and went back to his phone. If I asked him to bring the laundry basket upstairs, he sighed like I had interrupted something important. On weekends, he drove to his parents' house an hour away. His father Gerald wanted to watch football or play golf, and his mother Denise always had a full meal waiting for her only son. At first, I told myself it was sweet that he loved his parents. Then I realized he was not visiting them like a grown man. He was running back to the people who still treated him like a spoiled boy. Denise had opinions about everything. She said I worried too much, rested too much, and acted like pregnancy made me fragile. She said women in her generation did not need constant praise for doing what women were designed to do. Gerald often reminded me that Ethan worked hard and deserved peace. I wanted to ask when I was supposed to receive peace, but every time I defended myself, Ethan said I was disrespecting his family. The Friday before everything happened, Ethan came home angry because I had forgotten the smoked almonds, protein bars, and craft beer he wanted to bring to his parents before their golf weekend. I told him I could order them for delivery, but he said they needed them in the morning. When I suggested he stop at the store himself, he stared at me like I had insulted him. You have been home all day, he said. Those words hit hard because home all day meant laundry, cleaning, phone calls with insurance, back pain, swollen feet, heartburn, and trying not to panic whenever I felt a contraction. Still, I drove to Target with one hand on the steering wheel and one hand on my belly. I bought everything he wanted, plus a golf glove he had mentioned weeks earlier because some foolish part of me still wanted to make him happy. I remember standing in the checkout line, shifting my weight from one foot to the other, while a cashier asked when I was due. "Tomorrow," I almost said. But I smiled and said very soon. In the parking lot, the beer case was too heavy for me to lift. I stood there pretending to rearrange bags until Mira Caldwell, our neighbor, walked over. She helped me load the car and asked where Ethan was. I said he was busy with work. Mira looked at me gently and said, "Maya, busy men can still be decent men." That sentence stayed in my head the whole way home. When I got home, Ethan did not thank me. He complained I had bought the wrong almonds, then criticized the pasta salad I made for dinner, saying his mother made it better and never let food taste that bland. I reminded him that I had been on my feet for hours, but he only shook his head like I was making excuses. He opened the golf glove, tried it on, and still did not say, "Thank you." 10 minutes later, he took the snacks, beer, and golf glove and left for his parents' house because he wanted a normal meal. I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at a tiny blue bib beside my plate, wondering why I was still trying to earn love from people who treated my exhaustion like an inconvenience. The next evening, Ethan came home smiling in a way that made my stomach tighten. It was the smile he wore when he had already made a decision and wanted me to act like I had been included. I was on the couch with a heating pad on my back, finishing thank you cards from the baby shower. I hoped he had finally arranged paternity leave or called the pediatrician like he promised. Instead, he said his parents had upgraded their trip. "Scottsdale," he said. 3 days at a golf resort. Mom found a package deal and Dad already booked the tee times. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh and tell me it was a joke. "Ethan, my due date is next week," I said. He waved that away like I was talking about a minor headache. Due dates are estimates. Babies come late all the time. Besides, the tickets are non-refundable. I asked if he was serious. He looked offended and said it was a family trip. I told him our family was about to include a newborn. Our son could come any day. Ethan sighed like I was being dramatic on purpose. He said I was not the first pregnant woman in the world and that his mother had flown when she was carrying him. I reminded him I was not 8 months pregnant. I was 1 day away from full-term delivery and supposed to stay close to the hospital. He said if I refused to go, he would just go with his parents. I asked if he would really leave me alone this close to labor. He said I had a phone, neighbors, ride-share apps, and a hospital nearby. Then he added that I was turning fatherhood into a prison before the baby had even arrived. A few minutes later, Denise called. Ethan put her on speaker. She said men needed a moment too, because once the baby came, everything would be about me and the child. Gerald added from the background that women had babies every day and I would be fine. Denise told me that if I started acting helpless now, Ethan would never get any peace as a father. I said peace did not mean abandoning responsibility. Denise gave a soft laugh, the kind that sounded polite but felt like a slap. She said I would understand marriage better when I stopped expecting my husband to orbit around me. I told Ethan quietly, "If you leave and something happens, I will not forget it." He asked if that was a threat. I said it was a boundary. He rolled his eyes, but I saw the anger under it. After that, he treated me like I was punishing him. He answered with short phrases, complained about my hospital bag by the door, and installed the car seat incorrectly before telling me to stop nagging. I fixed it myself in the driveway while he watched golf highlights inside. I remember kneeling beside the open car door, sweating, trying to follow the instruction video while the baby pressed painfully against my ribs. Every time the straps clicked wrong, I thought about how Ethan would have blamed me if anything happened on the way home from the hospital. That was when Mira came by with chicken noodle soup and banana bread. She noticed my tired face, the hospital bag by the front door, and the way I kept rubbing my lower back. She asked if I had someone to drive me to the hospital if labor started. I wanted to say my husband, but the words would not come out. Mira placed her hand over mine and said, "Call me, day or night, no questions. I almost cried right there because she had offered me more comfort in one sentence than Ethan had offered me in weeks. That night, Ethan went out with friends for what he called one last normal evening before fatherhood. He said it like fatherhood was a jail sentence, and I was the guard locking the door. He came home after midnight smelling like beer and fried food, then fell asleep without asking why I was sitting upright with tears in my eyes. I had been timing irregular contractions for 2 hours. They faded before morning, but my fear did not. I looked at Ethan sleeping peacefully beside me and understood that if the real pain started, I might still be completely alone. The morning he left began with suitcase wheels scraping across the hallway floor. Ethan pulled his luggage past the bedroom while I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through a low pressure that had woken me before sunrise. I told him I did not feel right. He said I was probably nervous because I had worked myself up about the trip. I reminded him my due date was the next day. He said he would be back before dinner if everything went according to plan. That sentence almost made me laugh. Nothing about pregnancy had gone according to plan, but Ethan's plan involved golf clubs, airport coffee, and his parents smiling in vacation pictures. So apparently that was the only plan that mattered. He packed protein bars into his carry-on while his phone kept buzzing. Denise wanted to know if he had left yet. Gerald wanted to know if he had packed the golf glove. I asked him one more time to stay. Not forever, just until our son was born safely. Ethan looked irritated instead of guilty. Maya, I cannot live my life around your anxiety, he said. I went quiet. He took my silence as permission and loaded his suitcase into the SUV. I followed him outside because part of me still believed that if he saw me standing there, pale and shaking, he would remember I was his wife. He shut the trunk and checked his watch. I opened my mouth to say his name, but then warmth rushed down my legs. I looked down and saw fluid spreading across my leggings and onto the concrete. My water broke, I whispered. Then louder. Ethan. My water broke. I need to go to the hospital now. For 1 second he looked panicked. I reached for the passenger door thinking he would finally choose us. Instead, his eyes dropped to the seat. He grabbed an old towel from the garage shelf and started wiping the edge of the passenger side even though I had not even sat down. I told him the baby was coming. He snapped that he knew and told me to stop yelling. I was not yelling. I was terrified. His phone buzzed again. He read the message and cursed because his parents were already at the airport. I told him to drive me to St. Agnes Medical Center. It was less than 20 minutes away. He rubbed both hands over his face and said, Maya, listen to me. You will be fine. Call a taxi or an Uber. The tickets are non-refundable, and my parents are waiting. I asked if he was really leaving his laboring wife in the driveway. He said I was making it sound worse than it was. He said first babies took hours, hospitals had staff for this, and he would only be standing around uselessly. Then he asked what I expected him to do there anyway. Hold my hand while I screamed? Something inside me went cold. I tried to grab the door handle, but he stepped between me and the car. Do not get in like that, he said, looking at my wet leggings. I just had the interior cleaned. That was when I stopped begging. I backed away slowly, gripping the side of the garage as another contraction hit. The pain bent me forward, but Ethan only looked toward the street, as if he was embarrassed someone might see us. He did not look like a husband watching his wife suffer. He looked like a man whose schedule had been interrupted. Ethan got into the SUV and said, Text me when you get checked in. Do not make this a bigger deal than it is. Then he drove away. For several seconds, I stood there listening to the engine fade. It was strange how quiet the street felt after that. A dog barked somewhere. A delivery truck passed at the end of the block. Life kept moving as if my whole world had not just split in half. 2 houses down, Mira's front door opened. I did not know yet that her doorbell camera had recorded everything. My phone buzzed with one final text from Ethan. I will call you when we land. Please do not start drama with my parents. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. I wanted to collapse, but another contraction reminded me that my son still needed me. Then I called Mira. I could barely speak when I said I needed help. She simply answered, "I am coming." Less than a minute later, she was beside me with towels, a calm voice, and steady hands. She helped me into her car, called the labor and delivery unit, and drove toward the hospital. As another contraction stole my breath, I watched my house disappear behind us and understood that a man who abandons you in your weakest moment should never again be trusted with the power to hurt you quietly. Mira drove with the kind of calm that kept me from falling apart. She did not fill the car with questions or panic. She reminded me to breathe slowly and told the hospital we were on the way. Later, I learned she had once worked as a labor and delivery nurse, which explained why her voice stayed steady even when mine shook. At St. Agnes Medical Center, nurses brought a wheelchair and started checking me in. When one nurse asked if my support person was parking the car, I swallowed hard and said, "My support person is here." Then I pointed to Mira. The nurse understood. She put a privacy note in my file and asked if there was anyone I did not want allowed into the room. "My husband," I said, "and his parents." Saying those words out loud felt like crossing a line inside myself. I expected guilt, but I felt relief. Mira helped me call my parents, Peter and Diane Wallace, in Denver. My mother answered cheerfully until she heard my voice. I told her the baby was coming and Ethan was not there. After a painful silence, my father took the phone and said they were booking the next flight. He told me to focus on breathing and promised they were coming. Labor blurred everything. Pain rose and fell. My phone kept lighting up. At first, Ethan texted short updates. "Boarding now." "Any update?" "Do not ignore me, Maya." Then his tone changed. "Why is Mom crying? Did you tell someone? What did you do?" That was when I knew something had started outside that room, but I did not answer. My son needed all my strength. My parents arrived while I was still in labor, breathless from airports and fear. My mother cried for 1 second, then became strong for me. My father kissed my forehead and looked like he was trying not to break. Mira stepped back, but I asked her not to leave. She stayed. Hours later, my son was born screaming, red-faced and furious, as if he already knew he had been disrespected. When the nurse placed him on my chest, everything else faded. Ethan, the driveway, the tickets, the SUV, all of it disappeared for one sacred minute. My baby was alive and safe. I whispered, "Leo, you are safe." In my heart, I called him Leo Wallace because I wanted him tied first to the people who showed up when it mattered. My mother cried when she heard the name. My father put a hand over his mouth and turned away for a moment. I knew they understood what I was really saying. I was not just naming my son. I was choosing the family that had protected us. After I was moved to recovery, my phone began vibrating again. Ethan. Denise. Ethan again. My mother asked if I wanted it turned off. I said not yet. When Ethan called again, I answered. His voice came through in panic. "Maya, what is going on? Why is there a video? Why is everyone messaging me? Did you send something to my company? Honey, talk to me." I waited for one question. "Is the baby okay? Are you okay? Where are you? Can I come?" But those were not his first concerns. His panic was about himself, his reputation, and the vacation collapsing around him. He did not ask how much pain I had been in. He did not ask whether our son was breathing well. He did not even say he was sorry first. I looked at Leo sleeping in my mother's arms and said quietly, "Ethan, that is the price you pay." Then I hung up. The room went silent. My mother looked proud in a sad way. My father nodded once. When Mira returned, she asked if I was all right. I looked at my son and said, "I am not all right yet, but I am done being his wife in every way that matters." That evening, hospital staff confirmed that no visitors would be allowed without my permission. Ethan came anyway with his parents, but they were stopped at the desk. Denise cried loudly. Gerald demanded to speak to someone in charge, and Ethan insisted he had rights as the father. None of them reached me. A nurse later told my mother that Ethan kept saying there had been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed when she told me. There was no misunderstanding. There was a driveway, a camera, a laboring woman, and a man who chose a flight. For once, a closed door protected me instead of trapping me inside someone else's expectations. The video did not spread because I wanted attention. I did not wake up after childbirth and decide to ruin Ethan. He did that himself. Mira's doorbell camera faced the street and captured part of our driveway. It recorded Ethan loading the SUV, my water breaking, the argument, his body blocking me from the passenger side, and the car backing out while I stood there in pain. The sound was clear enough to hear the sentence that changed everything. Call a taxi or an Uber. The tickets are non-refundable. Mira showed the video to my parents, then to me. Watching it once was enough. In my memory, I had felt small. On video, I looked abandoned. My father had to leave the room. My mother cried silently. Mira said she would give me the file and delete any copy if I wanted. I told her to save it. At first, I thought I might need it for divorce. I did not know the truth was already moving through the world. Mira had told her husband, Russell Caldwell, what happened. Russell was not just our neighbor. He was also a major client and strategic partner of Northline Outdoor Solutions. Ethan did not know that because he never cared enough to learn much about our neighbors. Russell did not threaten anyone. He simply asked if I was safe and whether Ethan's company knew what kind of judgment their regional sales manager had shown. Meanwhile, Ethan and his parents made everything worse. Denise left a voicemail saying I had embarrassed the family and that a wife should not punish her husband for one misunderstanding. Gerald texted my father that childbirth was women's business and Ethan had obligations already paid for. Ethan sent messages blaming me for making him look like a monster. He wrote that I had to fix this before it reached his office. He also wrote that if I loved our son, I would not destroy his father's career before the baby could even recognize him. Every word became evidence. The story first appeared in a local moms group without my name. Someone asked if a woman should forgive her husband for leaving her in labor because his flight was non-refundable. Then the blurred doorbell clip appeared. No names, no address, no baby information. But people recognized the SUV, Ethan's Northline Polo, and the airport story he had posted that morning. The story jumped to Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. People called him non-refundable dad. They placed his smiling airport photo next to the blurred driveway clip. Ethan tried to say it was a misunderstanding, but the video, texts, hospital admission time, and Leo's birth time made that impossible. Northline acted quickly because their brand was built around family values. Their ads showed fathers with toddlers, couples around fire pits, and mothers wrapped in blankets on porches. Now people were commenting under company posts, asking if abandoning a laboring wife was part of their family lifestyle. Russell canceled a strategy lunch and emailed Northline leadership about judgment, reputation, and accountability. That email did more damage than the comments. Ethan was called into a video meeting with HR while still in Arizona. He later accused me of setting him up because the meeting happened before he finished his first round of golf. That detail said everything. He still tried to play golf after learning his son had been born. HR placed him on temporary leave. His quarterly bonus was frozen. His promotion was removed from consideration. Russell's account was reassigned. His coworkers stopped replying to his jokes. Even the people who used to laugh at his confidence started calling it arrogance behind his back. One coworker anonymously commented that Ethan had always talked about family values in presentations, but treated people beneath him like props. Denise faced her own consequences when her voicemail and comments spread through her real estate and church circles. Gerald's golf friends started avoiding him. One of them had a daughter who was also pregnant, and according to someone who knew the family, he told Gerald that what Ethan did was not old school. It was disgraceful. For people like them, social shame was worse than legal trouble because they had always believed reputation proved goodness. Now reputation had become a mirror. Ethan tried to regain control by calling nonstop. When the hospital blocked him, he emailed. When I did not answer, he contacted my parents. When my father said all communication would go through a lawyer, Ethan exploded. He called me unstable, vindictive, hormonal, and unfit to make decisions. He demanded I make a public statement saying the video was misleading. My lawyer, Brenda Lawson, smiled coldly when she read that. She said men like Ethan were helpful because they thought anger was power, so they kept creating evidence. Brenda sent a formal notice. No direct contact, no harassment. All communication about the baby, separation, property, and custody would go through her office. Ethan responded with one more voicemail saying if I came home, he might forgive me. Might forgive me. I saved it twice. By then, revenge was no longer something I had to chase. It was happening because Ethan could not stop being himself. Every defense revealed another ugly truth. Every excuse became another receipt. While he lost sleep over comments, HR meetings, frozen bonuses, and a promotion slipping away, I was learning how to feed Leo, sleep in pieces, and look at myself without seeing the woman left behind. I saw a mother who survived the driveway. I saw someone who finally understood that documented truth does not need to scream. By the time I left the hospital, Ethan had sent flowers, emails, apologies, accusations, and one long message claiming I was weaponizing motherhood. My parents brought Leo and me to a rental house first because I was not ready to return to the place where Ethan had abandoned me. Mira arranged for a security friend of Russell's to be nearby on discharge day, not because we expected violence, but because Ethan and his parents had already shown they did not respect boundaries. They came anyway. Ethan stood near the entrance with red eyes and a bouquet from the gift shop. Denise clutched a stuffed bear like a prop. Gerald stood behind them with his arms crossed. When Ethan saw me holding Leo, he stepped forward. My father moved between us, and hospital security did the same. Ethan called my name like I was supposed to soften. I did not. Leo slept against my chest while the man who left us in a driveway begged for a public scene he could twist later. I got into my parents' car and left. That was the first time Ethan understood that access to me was no longer automatic. The divorce began quietly but firmly. Brenda Lawson filed for separation, primary custody, child support, and a temporary communication order because of Ethan's harassment. She included the doorbell video, hospital timeline, texts, voicemails, Gerald's message, and Ethan's recorded calls. At first, Ethan refused to cooperate. He said marriage problems should stay inside the family. Brenda replied that he had involved the airport, the internet, his employer, and both sets of parents, so that stage was over. He said he wanted to see Leo. Brenda asked him to agree to supervised visits, parenting classes, and written communication through a custody app. Ethan called that insulting, then admitted he did not see why babies needed fathers that early anyway. Brenda wrote it down. Later, Ethan requested one phone call with me to clear the air. I agreed only because Brenda and my parents were present and the call was recorded legally. Ethan began by saying this had gone far enough and that I needed to think about what I was doing to his life. I asked if he wanted to ask about Leo. He paused, then said Leo was a baby and did not know what was happening. But he did. His job did. His parents did. He complained that Northline froze his bonus. Russell pulled back from the account. His mother was crying, and his father could not go to the club without whispers. I said his choices had consequences. His voice turned sharp. He said I could have taken the Uber and handled it like an adult. My mother gasped. Brenda lifted one finger, reminding me to stay calm. I did. I told Ethan he had confirmed everything I needed to know. He tried to backtrack, saying he loved me and we could start over if I posted a statement saying the video was misleading. He said a good mother would want her son to grow up with both parents under one roof. I told him a good mother would never teach her son that love means abandoning someone and demanding forgiveness afterward. Then I looked at Leo sleeping against me and realized there was grief left, but no confusion. I told Ethan I was not coming home and ended the call. After that, his lawyer pushed him towards settlement because court would expose more evidence. I received primary physical custody. Ethan received limited supervised visitation, with possible expansion only after parenting education, counseling, and consistent child support. He had to communicate through a custody app. Child support was calculated from his previous income, which made him furious. The house was sold, debts were divided, and I kept Leo's furniture, my savings, my car, and every document Ethan once thought I was too overwhelmed to organize. Northline eventually let Ethan go during restructuring. The official reason was poor cultural fit and reputational risk. Ethan told people I cost him his career, but even those who disliked online drama knew the truth. No one made him leave. No one made him say the tickets were non-refundable. No one made him block me from the car or try to golf after learning his son had been born. He moved back in with Gerald and Denise, into the same house where he had learned that men deserved service and women owed silence. His freelance sales work was unstable. The golf trips stopped. Denise stopped posting family quotes. Gerald stopped bragging about raising a strong son. Their home, once the place where Ethan ran for comfort, became the place where all three of them had to sit with the consequences they had mocked me for warning them about. I moved to Denver with my parents for Leo's first year. Mira and Russell stayed in our lives. She visited when Leo was 3 months old and cried when he held her finger. My parents slowly stopped looking at me with fear in their eyes. They began looking at me with hope again. I returned to teaching part-time when I was ready, not to prove strength, but because I wanted Leo to see a mother who rebuilt her life with patience and dignity. Healing was not dramatic. It was feeding a baby at 3 in the morning, signing legal papers, going to counseling, accepting help, and learning that love without respect is not love. It was also learning not to blame myself for trusting someone who had hidden his selfishness behind charm. The lesson I want people to remember is that character is revealed when your need interrupts someone else's comfort. Pregnancy, childbirth, illness, grief, and fear are not inconveniences. They are moments when real love either steps forward or exposes its absence. No woman should be taught that endurance is loyalty when her safety and her child's future are at risk. No man should be praised for providing money if he refuses to provide care. Leo will grow up knowing responsibility is not optional, and apologies mean nothing without changed behavior. I want him to understand that strength is not cruelty, boundaries are not revenge, and protecting someone vulnerable is one of the clearest signs of love. Ethan believed I would forgive anything to keep the family together. He forgot that my son became my family the second he took his first breath. So if you were in my place, one day away from giving birth, watching your husband drive away because his tickets were non-refundable, would you forgive him for peace? Or would you choose your child, your dignity, and your future?
Thank you for watching another story from our channel. Please remember that this video is completely fictional and made only for entertainment, reflection, and educational storytelling. We hope it reminds you that your worth does not decrease because someone failed to appreciate it. And sometimes the people who reject you simply clear the way for a better life.